Greetings, beloved ones. Welcome to Satsang. Thank you for sharing this sacred time with me. I thought I would talk with you today about inner authority, since it's a challenge for many people to remember that they have inner authority. And because of the lack of certainty about that, one becomes afraid of giving oneself away and being taken over by someone else or something else. That fear is based on an insecurity about one's own inner authority. So I thought I'd say some things about it today. You possess inside you a sense of truth about what concerns you and about life itself. It's not based on logic, it's not based on information, it's not based on reason, it's really not based on the mind as much as on an inner knowing of what you value. Values come from the heart, they don't come from the mind. They can be reinforced by the mind, but they come essentially from the heart. So you have inside you a sense of what feels right to you. And each human being on the planet is meant to follow that sense of truth and to claim their sense of inner authority about what pertains to their own life. That doesn't mean that you have authority over what pertains to someone else's life, but you certainly have it over what pertains to your own life. And we're meant to hold on to this as the gift of our existence. In our culture and in our society, because of the predominant importance given to the sense of personal freedom, we mix up the issue of freedom and inner authority. And so there's fear then that gets attached to giving one's freedom away. There's fear that gets attached to following someone else's truth. Fear gets attached to the idea of learning from someone else. Fear gets attached to, if we're talking about traditions in the East and West, fear gets attached to having a teacher, a spiritual teacher. In the East, it's called gurus, and the students are called disciples. In the West, we just use the word teacher. And not only that, this is not only fear related to giving one's inner authority away on the earth. It's giving one's inner authority away to the idea that there are beings who are here to help us, help the earth, help the planetary transition, that exist in a hierarchy of spiritual evolution. Even the word hierarchy arouses fear in some people because it brings up this issue about giving one's inner authority away. But beloved ones, the universe is mysterious and complex. And so there is a spiritual hierarchy in evolutionary terms of those who have advanced more in their sense of comprehension of what is, who are more evolved in their knowing of their relationship to the all. That's true of the galaxy, that's true of the universe, it's true of life, and it's true of our human development. We don't think less of children because they know less than adults. No, we give them respect. We give them, yes, we give them respect, and we give them an honoring of what they know when they know it. We don't think less of them. And yet we don't think that they're equal in their sense of knowledge to what adults have. So fear has developed in our Western culture and in this country especially about the possibility of the loss of personal freedom. And it's because the sense of threat exists that one could give one's inner authority away. But I'm telling you that inner authority is not meant to be given away. It's yours, it's part of your existence. It remains yours whether you have a teacher or whether you are following guidance from the realms of light, or whether you are talking to the divine in whatever form you speak to the divine, your inner authority about what feels true to you remains yours indelibly as part of your existence. When we come to the human equation here about what principle to follow, what teacher to follow, what idea to follow about spiritual life, many people now use the term inner guru, and that's valid. The idea of an inner guru that you turn to follow is like saying the divine lives within me. It's valid, it's right. The divine does live within you. And that's the place, the fundamental, foundational place to turn to in your life for guidance. What is the truth that my own divine self is telling me about where to go, what to do, and so forth? There's a tension around this, though, because the lack or relative lack of rootedness in the sense of the validity of one's own sense of truth. In other words, well, maybe I know what's true and maybe I don't know what's true. That kind of doubt, self-doubt, which has been acquired because of the separation into different parts of the self, the outer self and the inner self, so that there can be a kind of shakiness about, can I trust my truth? Do I know what's right? Can I turn to it? Do I have an inner guru? You know, those questions come up because of the historical issue of separation from the deeper levels of being and going more to the mind. But I assure you, your inner authority, your inner sense of truth is indelible. It never leaves you. It can't leave you because it comes from your soul as the manifestation of the divine within you. If that is secure in you and you can turn to that, then you will not be afraid of losing yourself in another. You will be discerning about losing yourself in anyone. And people are afraid of love for this reason. Never mind speaking about spiritual life. People protect themselves from the experience of being close to others because they're afraid of losing their inner authority or being taken over. And so fear upon fear upon fear gets piled onto this issue of inner authority and whether you can hold on to yours. And you must hold on to yours. It's part of the foundation of your existence. But it's not opposite to learning from others and to being part of something that's larger than yourself. It's not opposite. In this country and in the West in general, it feels like it's opposite. It feels like if I take on a teacher or a guru, or if I follow something that claims to have, in that hierarchical sense of what I said about the realms of light, knowing something that I need to learn, then I'm in danger of losing my inner authority. Well, I really want to say this one thing to you about this subject. Anything that comes to you that's genuine from outside yourself or what feels like outside yourself, that expression also is needs to find a new vocabulary because there's no outside and no inside, but that's really the point here. Whether it's a teacher or a guru, a person embodied, or whether it's beings from the realms of light, or any kind of guidance that you might feel, it's only real if it awakens your sense of truth. If it comes to you as something that doesn't awaken your own inner sense of truth, it's not something to be followed. It only is something real if that thing that comes to you is actually of the divine, and as being of the divine resonates with your own inner sense of truth. So you never have to be concerned about giving away your sense of truth because it's not meant to be given away. And anyone in human embodied form who represents themselves to be a teacher or a guru, or by whatever name that might be called, has to be an awakener of truth within you. There's no true teacher or guru or guide who can replace your own sense of inner authority. That's not the relationship of light. That's not the relationship of a true teacher either. That teacher has to be living inside you as your own sense of truth. If it's not, or if they are not, then they are not coming to you as an emanation of the divine. Then they are coming to you as a person. And that is not the definition of a true teacher. A true teacher doesn't come to you as a person. They come to you as an emanation of the divine and as an awakener of the truth within you. And you never, ever have to leave that sense of the truth within you. Never. But you see, because of the fears that have gotten piled up onto this subject, and especially the confusion about what is personal freedom and what are the extents of it, and what I said about children also, and who am I meant to learn from, or what am I meant to learn about myself, about life, about freedom, then fear can color what we feel open to. Fear can color so many aspects of human relationships. And then withdrawal, rejection, compartmentalization takes over, and one becomes afraid of one's heart, like a fear that you'll give your heart away. You'll give your heart away and somebody else will have it. Now I'm speaking in terms of our spiritual life, but I'm also speaking about human relationships because people have these fears about human relationships as well. In the East, in many countries of the East, the understanding of the guru-disciple or student relationship is very deep, and it's not perceived as a threat. It's not perceived as the fear of getting swallowed up by someone else. In the East, it's understood as a process of receiving blessing from a true divine expression and taking it into oneself for oneself, not in the sense of obedience, but in the sense of receptivity and resonance. The whole tradition, which is very, very long for thousands of years in India, of the relationship of guru and disciple or guru and student, has been based on the understanding that the divine is not somewhere out there, that the divine comes to us being humanity, in embodied form from time to time, in order to convey something that will accelerate our own development, our own spiritual growth. The divine takes on form and comes to us as an emanation so that we can incorporate it and move our consciousness forward. This principle of divine emanation and of embodiment into that which can take on form is very ancient, from the beginning of what we call India's spiritual traditions. And so that fear level doesn't exist in the same way. It may have acquired some roots because of the westernization of Eastern culture, which has taken place throughout the world. But in its pure form, it doesn't exist because the idea of being able to learn from emanations of the divine and taking them in as blessing to your own inner sense of truth, that's been there. That's been there for forever, forever. But here in this country and in the West in general, we feel afraid. And there's reason for that. It's not always or even often a personal psychological fear, although it is that too. This country was built on the principle, the joint principle of freedom and unity, both. Liberty, equality, and justice for all, and the all means that we are in our caring trying to unify the republic, trying to take care of the needs of all. But the idea of freedom is intrinsic to the founding of this country. It's a principle wrapped in light that has been given to us that was the origin of the founding of this country in its separation from Britain. So the pursuit of personal freedom, the adherence to it, the clinging to it, the need for it, the fervor with which one holds on to it is part of our collective consciousness. So it's not a personal liability, except when it closes down consciousness so that it moves into the area of fear of something that's not to be afraid of. Then it becomes exaggerated and it becomes something that limits your own growth instead of expanding it. Your inner authority, your inner truth is never to be given away, ever. But if it closes you down out of fear to learning and to receiving love, or to receiving knowledge, or to receiving help, then it's something to look at within yourself. And the path of devotion, which is so very real in the East, the path of devotion, has many levels to it, many levels. Those beings who are in India called sadhus, and in other aspects, other areas of Southeast Asia have different names, who devote themselves to service to the divine, are devotees. They are devotees of the divine one by whatever name that divine one is called. And in different locations, that divine one is called different things. So devotion to something and the desire to serve something is part of a spiritual life. And here also in the West, it's part of a spiritual life. We can use the word devotion as long as we're picturing it as going from the inner truth directly to the source, the creator. The problem in the West is the issue of the intermediary stages of those beings who come to assist the process of spiritual evolution, and whether we can experience devotion safely without giving up our inner authority when it seems like something is being given to us as a gift. In this country and in the West in general, we're afraid of these things, as I said, because of the emphasis on freedom and the fear that gets initiated about the loss of personal freedom. But devotion and freedom are not opposites. Devotion is something that one can give oneself to because the inner truth that you feel says, this that I'm giving myself to is an authentic guide that is making or helping my inner truth awaken. Without that equation of the outer guide and the inner truth awakening, you don't have a foundation for devotion. It has to be that what's inside you and what's outside you are joined. They're joined. I have been given a mandate that came to my attention a few years back of joining the East and West in terms of spiritual philosophy and translating concepts from one realm to another. So what I'm expressing to you today is an effort to do that, to translate concepts from one realm to another, from one culture to another, so that the concepts of East and West no longer remain polarized in the way that they have been, with the gravitational pull towards personal freedom and the rejection of discipleship, the rejection of emanation, of an outer emanation as guide, can be absorbed into the greater understanding of what guidance actually is. And that's why I'm repeating myself over and over again in this discussion, that nothing and no one should be asking you to be giving away your inner truth, your inner authority. It's part of life itself. And anyone or any situation or anybody in any situation that asks you to do that is not operating out of the higher plane of spiritual truth. They're operating out of some other motive. And one's inner truth needs to be protected and upheld and claimed. But that needs to be separated from the fear of having it swallowed up or taken away or given away, because that fear is limiting our frame of reference that has to do with what is spiritual life. In this Western culture, it's limiting us so that we look at a certain uh, landscape of consciousness, and then we eliminate or are afraid of or turn away from the history of how consciousness has developed elsewhere. And so the polarization between East and West, which most of us don't have to pay attention to because we're here. And so we're here, we pay attention to the values of our own culture. But because I have been given this task, effort, gift as translator, this is part of a way to try and open up a subject that has been closed and also pushed off into the distance about what spiritual hierarchy means, what personal freedom means, what inner authority means, and where fear exists of being taken over by something whose truth cannot take you over. False authority can be like a demagogue. Can, of course, in any sphere of life, somebody can claim to have authority over you, but that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Your inner authority is sanctified. It must remain. But those emanations of divine help that want to come to you and that have been coming throughout the Earth's history to human consciousness, those are gifts of the divine manifesting in embodied form so that the Earth could move forward in its evolutionary potential. Those are not to be rejected. Those are to be accepted when they correspond to what you feel is true inside you, when they awaken it, when they open that up in you, then they become part of the richness of a spiritual life. So I ask you to look at this place in you where you may be afraid in yourself, historically, collectively, in whatever way, of having your own, of giving away your own authority, or maybe you have done it sometimes and have felt badly about it. Many people do that and then look back and say, why did I do that? That's very common. But the subject needs to be looked at. The subject of spiritual hierarchy, spiritual evolution, gurus and disciples, teachers, guides. What are you afraid of if you are afraid? And what can you accept in the way of divine blessing that comes as an emanation in embodied form to give you something that will help you move forward? Your own inner teacher, your own inner guru, your own inner authority must tell you where to go and who to follow and when to follow anything and when to back away and all of that. Ultimately, that's the foundation of life, of movement in life, is your freedom to choose your own direction. Nothing needs to take that away, nothing. My desire for you, beloved ones, and for all beings, is that we live without fear and that we are able to turn within to feel the certainty of inner guidance, not mental guidance, inner knowing of what feels true, not mind guidance, but something deeper than mind, to say yes when something is being offered as blessing, to say yes, and to say no when something feels like it is offering something, but it is simultaneously not awakening that inner core of inner truth. You have this capacity to discern inside you, and it is a blessed gift of existence that this is so. So I put before you this array of things to ponder about yourself and your own choices so that you can strengthen the confidence that you have that you are forever in charge of your own life. You are forever in charge of your own inner authority. Om Namo Bhagavate, Om Namo Namaha. I bow to the Supreme Being that lives within all. Namaskar.